for consent to record? Or did it just say I'm doing it?
It just says you're doing it.
Okay, cool. Okay, this is officially, I've called it the Mercy Meeting for SFA, but we're going to talk about walkthroughs, and I'm just wanting to get kind of a question and answer series of what you guys think about walkthroughs. So I'll go ahead and start with Ms. Vestal, and we'll get introductions from everybody. I want to know who you are, what your current position is, and then let me know what your past teaching experience is. I'm kind of curious as to where you've all been. Okay, go ahead.
I'm Cindy Vestal, the assistant principal at Northside Intermediate School. Before being a principal, I was a math teacher, both at middle school, Algebra 1, and at 5th grade math at Northside.
Okay. Were you not an instructional? Were you a coach?
Oh, I also was an instructional coach. Yes, I forgot
about that. Yeah. Okay. All right, Ms. Burris.
I am Heather Burris, and I presently teach ELA PowWow 4th grade, teaching reading and writing to struggling learners. And I've taught for 20 years at the end of this year. And I've taught 2nd through 5th in special ed, mainly in different settings, resource, inclusion, various other things.
So gen ed teacher is a little newer on your...
It really is, yeah.
Okay. All right, Ms. Sugg.
I am Regina Sugg, and I'm a 21-year teacher. I currently teach 4th grade math at Northside. I've been there for 5 years. But previously I have taught Head Start, 1st grade, 6th grade reading, and a couple of just classes at the middle school a couple of years. So I've kind of done it all.
That's neat. I didn't know that. That's really cool.
Yes.
Okay, Miss Finley.
I'm Tiffany Finley, and I am the special ed math inclusion teacher and special ed resource math teacher at Northside. I think this is finishing up my 18th or 19th year teaching. I have always taught at Northside. I started out as resource, where I taught reading, writing, math, and did CMC for science social studies. And then we moved into the inclusion setting, where now I go in classrooms. And then I also do the resource also for math, and then the case manager for 4th grade special ed.
Okay. Oh, and Ms. Burris, we forgot, we've added the resource reading in for that chunk of time. Was it this year and last year that we did that?
Last year as well. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I had it 8 to 8:45 last year, or 8 to 8:35 or something like that.
But that's kind of a new thing for Northside, because it was really just like the Reading 180 platform before that. So that's kind of something new. That was a really positive thing to add. Okay, so I just wanted to start out with kind of looking at what is a walkthrough and what the purpose of walkthrough. So I'm actually going to let Ms. Vestal go last on this one. And Heather, you're at the top of my screen, so I'm kind of going clockwise. So I'll start with you. What do you think the purpose of a walkthrough is?
Usually they're very targeted on, like, I remember one that we did on student engagement, and they're always unannounced, which makes them kind of different than, possibly a observation, those formal ones. And they're usually quick, and just watching different kids. And I've seen a lot of questioning while the administrator is there. They do a lot of questioning with students, and what are you working on? What is? And I've heard, well, what is the reason why you're doing that? And that's where a lot of my kids kind of have frozen up, I think, a little bit on that question. But they can tell you what they're doing, but not always maybe why. Would be probably an area that I definitely need to grow in, is why we're doing it, not what we're doing only. But
I thought Reading 180, I always felt there was a small disadvantage from not being in a classroom where you have a variety of students, since it's a more targeted classroom for your students who aren't achieving on level. So I always felt like, my classroom's different.
And the feedback is a less concentrated amount of time, because it's usually 5 to 10 minutes, I think, is usually the time frame versus 45 minutes. So it's definitely a snapshot of all snapshots.
Okay. Ms. Sugg, you have anything to add to that? She was pretty thorough.
No, she was pretty thorough. I think they're just mainly to make sure all teachers in the subject are kind of on the same path. Maybe not doing the exact same thing, but on the same path, and make sure we are doing what we are supposed to do.
That's a really good point. Very good point. Ms. Finley, yours is kind of a little different.
Well, I agree with what they were saying because I've had walkthroughs in my resource math class where, we're working in small groups and sometimes the kids are independent and sometimes they're with me. And so the principal who's doing the walkthrough might come over and see how the kids are modeling the activities with the teacher. And then also check with the kids if they're working on something independently to see, okay, now, do you know what you're doing? And so it's a way for them to see the teacher interacting in that resource setting in that small group, and then seeing the kids trying the activities on their own, and then seeing, do you really understand that concept? And then in the inclusion classroom, I think it gives the principals an idea of, okay, so how are these two teachers working together, number one, and how are they reaching all the kids in the classroom? It's the way for the principal to see, are they pulling small groups? Is the inclusion teacher, monitoring and going around and working with kids individually and kind of seeing the setting and how it's laid out, and just really seeing both viewpoints of the regular ed teacher and the special ed teacher together.
And to piggyback on what Tiffany was saying, I know Miss Vestal did walk in last year when Tiffany was in there, and we were, I don't know, I can't remember what we were doing, but I did feel like I had to apologize to Miss Vestal because we weren't being active and, doing that. But she was able to see 3 or 4 different groups in action and just different things. So
like on that point, Miss Vestal, so what do you do when you go into a classroom though, and maybe she thinks, whoa, this was not a good day to go into this classroom? How do you navigate that?
Well, when you go in and you realize that, we have the flexibility to just say, we'll come back later. And that's the thing about the walkthrough. It is a snapshot. We usually stay about 10 minutes. It's always, if we see that there's going to be a transition taking place, and you might stay and watch that transition. But it is a good way to see what's going on in the classroom just at sporadic moments, and basically the district has asked us to focus on student engagement. How much is the students engaged? Is it more student-centered learning versus teacher-centered learning? And so when we give feedback, we have a form that we use, and we usually give very short feedback. And it might be that we might sit down and talk about, okay, what was going on? This wasn't a good time. And usually we try to do multiple walkthroughs, both of us together. Like I might not just strictly go into math classes, but go into ELA classes as well as math classes. So we both get a perspective on what's going on, and we talk about it, and we kind of calibrate how we're seeing it and looking at it.
So do you, since the emphasis on student engagement, are there several different forms that you use when you go into the classroom, or do you stick to one form when you go?
The form that I sent you is one that we do use, and then there's another one that our new administration created that I haven't had a chance to send to you yet. But it also looks at a strength and a weakness when you go in.
Right, yeah.
It basically is based off of T-test. It's looking at those T-test objectives and where is there a strength and where is there a weakness. And so when you kind of have a little post conference about it, you talk about that strength and that weakness, So it's kind of just, like I said, built around what T-test is looking for.
Okay. So we were provided some literature on just, looking at those walkthroughs, and this guy who wrote this put the emphasis should be on classroom and instructional organization, the alignment of the instruction, the student engagement, and the rigor of instruction. And, there were pictures to go along with it, and it really reminded me of years ago when I was in first grade of balanced literacy and getting those walkthroughs whenever you have all of that going on. And it took me back to first grade when you have all of your word walls and things like that. And I know that in fourth grade, y'all still keep it kind of elementary. And so do you think that there's an equal amount of emphasis put on the classroom and instructional organization, the student engagement, the alignment of the instruction, and the rigor of the instruction? Do you think that those are almost equally measured, or do you feel like you think one is more important than the other, so you want to focus on that more, making sure that teacher's up to par in that area?
You can really tell. You'd be surprised in that short 10 to 15 minute, you can actually tell whether those things are happening or not. The organization and instruction is very easy to tell. The student engagement is one of the things that we're focusing on right now because that's what our district has mandated. But when you talk about the alignment of instruction, you're looking to see if that objective is posted and if they are following that objective. And I always go back and I check the TEK. I look at the TEK that's on the board. And of course, it's math. I'm more familiar with those. But if I go into a language arts classroom, I have a set of those TEKs that I go back and I look at. This is what was posted. And then I look at the teaching that was going on and look to see if there was an alignment there. And then the rigor of the instruction. Sometimes if you're just staying in that 10 or 15 minute block of time, they may not get to that higher level of rigor. It may be more of a warm up or something like that. So that's why you do those multiple walkthroughs. I always record the time that I went in. So if I'm going to go back to that classroom, I try to go at a different time so I can get a better picture. Of course, when you do an evaluation where you stay the 45 minutes, then you do see all of that stuff. So it's all equally important. And you would be surprised in that 10 to 15 minute bit of time how you can see all of that.
And I will add, I agree with Ms. Vestal, but I have trouble with the student engagement part because it depends on the classes that I have. Some years they're real good for student, they're real good for student engagement. The other is the others you cannot do group work with them. You have to do individual work with them. So I struggle with that from year to year. The student engagement part, and then like she said, on the rigor, it also depends on your class and where that class is. So,
who was this talking to?
So I've got a question. Y'all have 80-minute periods. It's almost like blocked instruction, almost like at the middle school level. Do you find it difficult to show in that 10-minute walkthrough?
Sorry.
When
Something was wrong because it wasn't coming on. It was at times.
Sorry.
That's okay. That's okay.
Well,
Do you want to?
I got it now.
Oh,
I had to start a Zoom meeting. I'm sorry.
No, I knew. I forgot you had to do that at 11. I am so sorry. No, actually, we're good to go. What I was saying, Regina, do you and anybody else in that 80-minute period, do you find it super nerve-wracking that she's coming in for that 10 minutes when you've got 80 whole minutes or 90 whole minutes to teach that class, and she's getting that 10-minute window? I mean, does your stomach just sink sometimes?
Sometimes it does depend. It depends on the day and depends on the class she walks in. But not to brag, but I know I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing most days, and so it doesn't bother me. When they schedule for an evaluation, I said, I really don't care. I used to try to have these elaborate lessons planned out, but it's like at this point in the game, it is what it is. And so they know my door is an open door. You know, they can pop in anytime. And so, but it still gets a little nerve wracking. But
I think like whenever I'm in there with Regina, her class is structured where she checks her homework at the beginning. And then after she checks homework with the kids, she's doing live feedback. So Miss Vestal has come in before when Regina was actually checking homework, but she was able to see the students were engaged. They were answering questions and giving feedback even during that time.
Yes.
And then, I was either walking around with kids or checking with kids and making sure they were doing, corrections. And then if Miss Vestal felt she needed to come back for another walkthrough to see, the actual core lesson, then she would come back another time. So I think it kind of depends sometimes on like I think Regina was saying, the makeup of the classroom. Whenever it's Regina and I in there, there's always a small group going on. It's going to be me with the group in the back, and she's going to be teaching whole group. But if it was a different class period, Regina may not be doing small group because she's leading out in the main instruction.
Which is what you talked about. It's the dynamics of which class you get, throughout the day. Yeah.
And I will say there have been some times that I've walked into a class and the teacher is sitting at their desk. And, a lot of times as a past teacher, it's always never failed that you just sit down to do something and somebody walks into your room. And the teacher would usually get up. And that's understandable because I remember as a teacher doing that. But then also there are times that I've walked into a classroom and the teacher doesn't move from their desk, So that's when, your question about where you see strengths and weaknesses, that's where I see some weaknesses on our campus, is getting everybody up to the same level of engaged with the students and encouraging the students to be engaged and not just be teacher directed instruction. So, but for the most part on our campus, I'm lucky because we've got fabulous teachers,
So is there anything teachers that y'all wish you were being evaluated for that is not on the form? Do you feel like you're not being recognized for something, or that you wish there was something else that were put on there?
I can't think of anything that right offhand that, I wish, like I said, I know I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, and the stuff on the form is important stuff. And with this new administration, I'm going to have to up my game on student engagement. But
so do you feel
that's
like
going to be hard?
Do you feel like, y'all have PLCs and y'all get with your subject, level. Do you feel like those help you when it comes to walkthroughs? So do y'all talk about what you're doing, when you're doing it, and how much time you're spending on it and things like that? So you have some direction.
Yes.
So those are helpful.
Yeah. And I'm sorry. I agree too about the PLCs because we try as principals, we try to attend the PLCs. And so when that conversation is going on, you can see that there's an alignment of those teachers. Each teacher may go about teaching it in a different way because they have the autonomy to do that for their teaching styles because we all teach differently, but they're all working together on that same thing, and they use those activities and they share those ideas and bounce them off of each other, which again, I think because at where we are, I think is a strength for our campus because the teachers do work so well together, including pulling Tiffany in with her resource kids. She gets those ideas and then she modifies them to meet the needs of her students. So I've seen lots of student engagement in Tiffany's class.
So that really comes into the strengths and weaknesses. So, and all I've heard you really say the weaknesses, just maybe seeing them not up and around, maybe at their desk a little more. But, and I've gone into to get signatures from teachers or to drop off paperwork. And a lot of time when I do see them at their desk, they're calling up one-on-one kids because they're working in groups or something. They're having those private conversations with their students. And so that's what I've seen. Or they're working some type of video and it's at their desk where their media center is or something. I've noticed that. So that was interesting. So do you feel the walkthrough is effective? Like Ms. Burris, do you feel like the walkthrough is effective for you? Do you get the right feedback?
I do. It's a lot of, I've seen it's a lot of narration and a lot of, there'll be little, narratives around it that say, little added notes, like it when I saw this. And usually we'll get like a little card in our boxes, enjoyed coming to your class or something like that, kind of as a follow-up thing. That always kind of gives you the warm fuzzies kind of deal. And just kind of, I try to keep mine from walkthrough to walkthrough. And if there was an area that said, hey, basically see if I've grown since the last one, I guess. Something was like, hey, you need to work on this. I kind of keep them to kind of cross-reference and say, okay, was that brought up in this one too? Because I need to really work on that to, see if that strength or that has become a strength. Basically.
That's a really good point, because like when I go do my first walkthrough versus when I go in and do other walkthroughs, I do look to see if that area that we might have addressed, regardless of what it was, if there has been some improvement in it and some changes, there, if the teacher's working towards working on that. So
have you ever found that you have a pattern of weakness in an area of a teacher or maybe a department?
I will probably say, and as a former teacher, one of the things that I struggled with the most, because it's kind of the old saying, we teach the way we learned or the way we were taught. So for a lot of us that have been teaching, and we've all been teaching for over 10 years, we're used to doing more teacher-led instruction. We're used to doing more of that lecture style. So I would say, but I will say, along with that, the teachers on our campus are working very, very hard to turn that learning over to the students and make them more responsible for it, with the centers that they're doing and all of the other things that they're doing to try to pull the students in, the table talk and all of that, to get that engagement going on. But I would probably say that's one of the areas that we're probably not where we should be. We're moving towards it, but probably not where we should be.
So I notice, just scheduling our meetings, I notice when teachers are out and like when groups of teachers are out, do you teachers feel like you get the opportunity to go to workshops to improve on the areas in the walkthrough that you notice are more important or that you need help in?
Yes. They're very flexible. If it costs money, if the money's there, they'll let us go. But they are really supportive of letting us go to the workshops. I know I was sent along with other like fifth grade teachers to the DMAC, to the Lead Forward workshop a few months ago. Learn some new stuff, how to look at things, how to improve. But I'm always looking for things to learn.
So do you bring that information back and share it with others?
Yes, I did. And I made a presentation when we had our last, I guess, professional development day. I was able to share it. And then I did an online thing about, help me, Tiffany, about
I just remember when we did our math meeting, you presented it and you showed it to our whole team and showed us ways to use the material. It was the testing information we got back.
The testing information, but I also did another workshop off of Region 7 about our low students.
Yes.
And
how to reach them better.
And so, yes, our campus is very open to allowing us to share and take on things and do things.
Yeah, I notice when I schedule things, they're like the whole math department is out, or all the language arts teachers are going to be gone the next 2 days, or something like that. So I have to adjust. But I think that's neat that everybody's going together, and it's not just on one person to go by themselves and bring it back, because interpretation I've found is different from one person to another. So you can always enlighten people on what you got from it versus what someone else received. So let's see. Something not on the agenda, and it just kind of came to me on walkthroughs. I lost it. Let me go ahead and ask my last question, and then maybe I'll get that back. Do the walkthroughs help you align as a grade and in your content areas, even if it's not as a grade? How do those walkthroughs, do you talk about them, or are they more kind of hush hush? Because I know that's really private. But do you find a way to say, hey, what are you guys doing on such and such? Because I feel like I'm lacking in rigor or something like that.
We feel pretty comfortable, I'd say, in our teams. I mean, I do. I can say, hey, I got to walk through today and got feedback, and, this is maybe what was said. And how do y'all, I'll try to find a person who I truly believe is stronger, where it was recommended I need to go toward to become stronger, and I can pinpoint who's already there, and kind of go to them and say, hey, what are some of your trade secrets? And, how do you, mine is the wait time and not throwing out answer or, questions and answers almost in the same breath. I need a little duct tape on my mouth or something, but, just kind of, to just hear the crickets and be okay. Everything's, and, kind of wait through it and all that stuff. So that's kind of my deal, being vulnerable. Kind of, that would be the crux of probably where other weaknesses are after that, definitely. But that would be the big one for me, would just be going through the cricket sound and okay, and still guiding them to it, but not necessarily to where it was spoon fed to get them there.
Okay.
Definitely a guided thing.
Which reminded me of my question with you saying that. So, Ms. Vestal, do you feel like whenever you're sitting down and having these conversations with these teachers over the strength and the weakness, do you feel like you are having to tell them more of, here's what you're doing, here's what I need? Or do you feel like you're collaborating and coming to more of an understanding? Like if you said, Miss Burris, I loved all of these things. I noticed, though, you almost throw out the answers before the children have a chance. Do you feel like you jump into a conversation at that point? Or do you feel it's more, here's what I need you to do, and she says, yes, ma'am, and leaves? How do you feel that conversation goes?
I approach the conversation as a collaboration. We have very strong leaders on our campus, and we want to encourage them to continue to be leaders. And I want that conversation with them because, again, I remember being in the classroom as a teacher, and I feel like, I start the conversation with, how do you think you did? What do you feel about the lesson that you just did, or the walkthrough, the short time that I was in there? What do you see as your strengths and weaknesses? And that's kind of the jumping off point to say, yes, you did a great job on that. And, the teacher sometimes can already tell you, like Miss Burris, I have trouble with that wait time. And it is hard. Wait time is so hard to use because you're like just standing there and you feel like, okay, I've got this amount of time and I got to get this done. So I go into it as thinking of it as a collaborative conversation, and not something that I'm directing.
And I think if we're all honest, we all know where those are. We can go, what's here? I mean, it's getting that out and verbalizing it is probably the hardest time. The first time.
I can remember having walkthroughs with certain principals, and it was fine to sit in and have that conversation. Then I also feel there were others that I had a chip on my shoulder and thought, they don't know me. They've been in my classroom one time this year. And so I think it probably helps whenever you see them more often.
Yes.
And they see you more often.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
do you all have any closing thoughts or anything that you didn't get to share that you kind of had on your mind? Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I found that through the years being here at Northside, that our walkthroughs have kind of had a transition. And so, like, what we're doing now, like with the form that they come in and they fill out, they come in the room, they seem to be more effective. The walkthroughs and the format of the walkthrough is more effective. I feel like as a teacher that when the principal walks in the room, okay, when you come in, I'm not doing anything different if you're coming to my room today than what I would have done yesterday. It is what it is. Every day is a new day in my room, and it can change just like that, literally. But when they come in, they're very open to seeing what's really going on in the classroom, taking it all in, taking in behaviors of what the kids are doing, taking in how you're responding to those behaviors. And then they note that. And then, like on our walkthrough, one of the changes that's happened is, and I think it's pretty cool, they will say, like, when I was in your room, I noticed you said blah, 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 blah. I think that was a really good point you made. Like, they will write down something specific that I said, and I'm like, oh, you caught that? And it's like a compliment back to the teacher to go, yes, it's more personal. It's not like they just came in and just clicked off a bunch of checks on a box and signed it. They make sure that as the principals that you feel validated and
there's that action there.
That what you did, you're on the right track. And even if there's those weaknesses, it's, well, here's something you need to work on. Let's talk through this and see if there's a way we can maybe help each other. Or you might talk to so-and-so in your pod. They're really good at this. And then you're like, oh, I never thought about talking to them about this. So they're open to give you suggestions, other people to come to. And like I said, even if it's something negative they have to point out about what I'm not doing right, I don't feel like I've been slammed. I feel like when I walk out, I'm like, oh, I didn't realize I was doing it that way. So I can change and make a difference and do it a different way. So
While
I feel like
that teacher morale and that.
Yes.
And I know I can go to Miss Vestal's office, and I know I've done it before, or stop her in the hall and say, hey, I'm struggling teaching this concept, or this group of kids is just not getting it. How would you do it? Or what are some ways, or Tiffany and I talk, and then, what are some ways that I can reach these kids? And so, yeah, it's like Tiffany said, it is a good thing, on those days that you don't think you're being the best teacher and they walk in and they say something positive that you don't notice you do. It's kind of a natural thing, an everyday thing you do that you don't know that it's a positive thing. And so that helps. So
that's neat.
That's good to know. Yeah, that's good to know. Thank y'all.
All right. Well, I think I've obviously hit my time limit. I may have gone over, but this was very interesting. I was a little nervous at first, but it was really informative. I'm glad that we did it. Okay. Well, thank y'all very much. I appreciate y'all attending my Mercy meeting. And
thank you for inviting me.
Yeah.
Too, so.
And I'll see y'all the next time we meet.
All right. Bye.
Bye.